Pope Francis, Builder of Bridges, by Emma Otheguy, illustrated by Oliver Dominguez. As a child, George Bergoglio would skip through the city of Buenos Aires alongside his grandma Rosa, keeping time with the street musicians' lively milongas, their tango-like songs. He jumped into games of pick-up soccer, racing his friends for the ball, pumping his hands in the air, and dreaming of the smack of a goal in a real live net. Every day, Grandma Rosa taught George how to pray. They prayed together in the mornings and in the evenings. They prayed during Easter, when the streets were lined with processions, and they prayed at Christmas, when the city sparkled with color and light. One day, George noticed women on the street corner wearing hats and uniforms he'd never seen before. He tugged on Grandma Rosa's sleeve to ask why they were dressed that way. Grandma Rosa pulled George close to her and told him that the women were Protestant missionaries. They weren't Catholic like George's family, but that didn't mean they weren't good. George watched the women a little longer. He was glad to know that anyone of any faith could be good. As he grew older, George wondered how he could be good and help others. He kept thinking about it as he sorted through the beakers and flasks at the chemistry lab where he worked as a young man. His father, who had come to Argentina from Italy in search of a better life, had taught him the importance of hard work. But his Grandma Rosa had shown him that the most important work was to help others. George longed to do that work. The more he explored Buenos Aires, the more George noticed people suffering. Some were so poor that they lived in the villas miserias, the miserable slums. Each day in his prayers, George remembered the poor and asked for a way to help. In the stories of long-ago saints, George found inspiration. He wanted to be like Saint Teresa of Lisieux, sweet and gentle, or like Saint Francis of Assisi, who had given all his gold and silver to the poor. Saint Francis had helped even the smallest of animals, because he said that every living thing, rich or poor, human or animal, needed love. George found his path in a group of priests who expressed their love and care by teaching in schools around the world. He lived and worked with his group, the Jesuits, while he studied the Bible. When he was in his 30s, George became a priest himself and was now called Father Bergoglio. His whole family celebrated, but no one was happier than Grandma Rosa. As a priest, Father Bergoglio wanted to bring the kids in his neighborhood some of the fun of his own childhood. He hosted soccer games and movie nights, and on special occasions, he gave the kids hot chocolate. After years of work, Father Bergoglio became Bishop of Buenos Aires. He still remembered the villas miserias, the slums where children worried and suffered. But now he had a team of priests who worked with him to help entire families. He and the other priests sent kids to school, opened clinics to heal the sick, and visited grandparents if they were lonely. Across Argentina, people began to call Father Bergoglio the slum bishop because of his role in the villas miserias. In Rome, Pope John Paul II heard about his work and named him a cardinal. When Pope Benedict XVI resigned, Father Bergoglio flew to Rome to help choose the new pope. The cardinals gathered every day to talk about who would be the best leader, and some people wanted Father Bergoglio. There had never been a pope from South America before, and there had never been a Jesuit pope. Some said there never would be. For more than a week, the cardinals listened to speeches and prayed for inspiration. Finally, the time came to cast their votes. On a rainy evening in March, crowds of faithful Catholics filled St. Peter's Square, and around the world, on radios, on televisions, and on the internet, people tuned in to watch the chimney of the Sistine Chapel. Would the smoke that filled the sky be white or black? In every corner of the globe, people cheered. Habemus Papa! We have a pope. It was Father Bergoglio. He greeted people in the square not as George or Father Bergoglio, but with the new name he had chosen, like all popes do when they are elected. Father Bergoglio was now Pope Francis, a pope to welcome all God's people, like St. Francis had done so long ago. Because the saint had always dressed in simple clothing, Pope Francis refused to wear lavish garments like golden crosses and elegant robes. If we are too attached to riches, he said, we are not free. It was almost Easter when Pope Francis was elected, and people around the world couldn't wait to see how he would celebrate the most holy of the year. On Holy Thursday, Pope Francis broke with tradition. Instead of celebrating in a church, he celebrated in a prison. Instead of washing only men's feet, Pope Francis kissed and washed the feet of women as well as men, and Muslims as well as Catholics. This is a symbol. It is a sign, Pope Francis told the prisoners. Washing your feet means I am at your service. Some Catholics were amazed, but another word for Pope is pontiff, a person who builds bridges for everyone, no matter who they are. As the water poured forth from the pitcher, a bit of hope sparked in Catholics' hearts. Pope Francis had many new responsibilities now, but he kept extending his bridges to reach more and more people. He traveled to an island off the coast of Italy, where Muslim refugees had tried to escape wars and hunger on rafts. Pope Francis wanted refugees to find new opportunities, like his parents had found when they left Italy for Argentina. These, our brothers and sisters, seek to leave difficult situations in order to find a little serenity and peace. He told the crowds, they seek a better life for themselves and for their families. The pontiff lowered a decorated wreath into the sea, and he prayed that those in need of a new home would always find a bridge for the journey and an open door at its end. More people are left homeless and in need as the planet heats. The oceans overflow and farms and forests disappear. Near Francis's own Argentina, ranchers chop down the trees of the Amazon rainforest, destroying the habitats of animals and humans alike. Pope Francis feels the crack of those falling trees in his own heart. Creation is a gift. It is a wonderful gift that God has given us, so that we care for it, and we use it for the benefit of all, always with great respect and gratitude, he said. In a letter to every bishop in the world, he explained that we can't hog or hoard Earth's gifts. We all have to protect the planet so that we can all share its plenty. The pontiff builds bridges to ordinary people, especially children. Sometimes he stops his pope-mobile to joke with people around Rome or to kiss a baby's head. When his favorite team wins a soccer match, Pope Francis whoops and cheers. Every year, Pope Francis invites kids in need to visit him on a children's train. He talks to the kids in an easygoing style. Instead of just preaching, Pope Francis asks the kids questions and encourages them to speak up. One year, the children brought kites on board as a reminder that they could soar above. With laughter, prayer, and well-chosen words, the pontiff proclaims that each and every living thing shares the same planet, the same love, and love always builds bridges. Author's note: Pope Francis once described the Roman Catholic Church as a house with the doors thrown open. I think of Pope Francis as the man grasping the handle, pushing against the wood with his shoulder. The door to the church sometimes sticks, but Pope Francis has moved toward a culture of social justice, care for the needy, and acceptance of all peoples. I think Pope Francis might identify with my earliest childhood's experiences of the church as a child in a large Latinx family. Catholic holidays in my house were celebrated with music, dancing, and above all, family, which to my parents seemed to mean anyone and everyone they could find. I came to associate Catholicism with a sense of abundance, abundant food and drink, abundant conversation, and an abundance of space in our hearts for siblings, cousins, and friends. Our Catholicism wasn't quiet or solemn. It was always mixed with the popular piety of the Caribbean, with chaotic banter in English and Spanish, and with shrieks, giggles, and laughter. The joy and lightness that Pope Francis brings to the pontificate highlight how important such an environment can be to Catholic life. When Pope Francis talks about the church as a house, I see his childhood home in Buenos Aires, or mine in New York, vibrant places overflowing with family. As I grew up, my friendship with the church expanded to include our parish in the suburbs of New York City. I came to love the quiet stillness of this small, dark church, as well as the guitar music and sunlight of the churches. I visited with family in Miami and Puerto Rico. The church became a link between the Latinx culture of my family and the cultures I experienced outside of home. Through sacrament, my life was tied to that of my beloved godmother, a German Catholic who survived World War II, married a Jewish refugee, and moved to New York City, where she became an essential part of our Latinx family. The church I knew as a kid was a place of acceptance, a haven and spiritual home for refugees. Many people today do not experience the accepting culture I enjoyed in the church, but I join other Catholics in my hope that Pope Francis's papacy is a step toward the church as it is truly meant to be, a house filled with family, with music and dancing, with the clatter of many languages, and with its doors forever open to the world. The end.